Hey Neomore, Dahi. Hope everyone's doing fine today. Personally, it's been a long day today. Ended up doing a lot of cleaning, organizing this morning. Worked a little bit on the knife handle on the kitchen knife that I'm currently working on. Then went off with your mom and got a new washer and dryer. Of course, that was a huge hassle because the closest place we could go to for one is about 40 minutes away, give or take. That was a fun drive. Once got back, found out that the van was needing new brakes. So, of course, that means a trip to AutoZone, go buy some brakes, come back, put those on, and with how early night has started now, after daylight savings time, by the time I got done with that, completely ran out of sunlight. But it just felt like it's been a long, ongoing day. But enough about that. I'm happy to be here, and I want to continue our readings. So, this story is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Once again, this story is coming out of the Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan, illustrated by Victor Ambrose. Okay. And look at that. Of course, I lost my page. Alright. So, it starts off with a very beautiful illustration.
I tried. Help me take this real quick.
One moment. Time for me to save the day again by me not doing anything particular. I'm being dragged away.
It's not working.
Pull.
I tried pulling, it hurt. It's just dragging.
It's not working.
What the hell? Ow!
Oh, you okay?
Yeah. Ow.
Apparently it just wanted some of your blood. It's a blood lock.
Oh, thank God, okay.
That's missing one of the handles on it, too.
Yes. But I got it separate.
Huzzah!
Woohoo! Okay. Love you, Dahi. I love you, baby. I miss you more than life itself.
See? This is the shenanigans that you will be coming home to.
Neomore, I can't wait to squish those chunky little cheeks of yours. Oh my God. I love your face. I love your face. It looks just like your mom's, and I love pinching hers. And I don't know how old she is. She's like in her 20s now. I would still pinch them. And Dahi, I hope you get to pinch your aunt's face someday. She'll probably allow it because, you know, you're you. Love you.
Alright, so let us begin the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It was Christmas tide in King Arthur's court at Camelot. Many good knights were there, seated at the round table as rightful brothers, enjoying the feasting, carol singing, and carefree mirth. Life was sweet, and the days passed in peerless pleasure for the most noble knights known in Christendom, and the fairest ladies that ever lived on earth. The lovely gray-eyed Queen Guinevere sat upon a dais beneath the canopy with silken curtains draped at her back. Rich tapestries from Talosi and Turkestan hung around her, all embroidered with the costliest jewels ever brought to Britain. At her side sat Arthur, regal and noble-looking, not eating till everyone was served, as was his custom. Before the king and queen's high table was the round table, at which sat the bold Sir Gawain and Sir Agravain of the heavy hand, both knights of renown and nephews of the king. Next to them were Bishop Baldwin and Yvain, son of Uriens, and many other stalwart knights with their ladies. Before each person were set 12 dishes, bright wine, and good beer, and the celebrations continued through the days and nights. On New Year's Eve, when the merriment was at its highest, the hall doors suddenly burst open and an unknown rider came charging in. He was a giant of a man, surely the tallest man alive, with strong, long limbs and great proud head. Yet, despite his bulk, he was well proportioned and fiercely handsome. Great wonder spread throughout the halls at the strange sight, for the stranger, from head to toe, was completely green, both clothing and the man himself. His coat and cloak were both of green, with a lining of ermine fur. The hood that lay upon his shoulder was of green to match, as were his leather hose. He wore a green belt and well-fashioned green riding boots. All his clothing was truly of a verdant green, and his mighty horse was of the same bright green, so that it matched the man exactly. But most strange of all, the man was green himself. His long flowing hair that fell to his shoulders was as green as feather grass, as was the bushy beard that hung upon his chest. His face, too, was of a greenish hue. No one present in the hall had ever seen so strange and awesome a sight. And yet he wore no armor, carried no shield or lance. In one hand he held a branch from the holy tree, the tree that is green when other trees are bare, and in the other hand he held a huge axe, with the blade burnished bright and razor sharp. Riding up to the royal dais, he wasted no words in greeting, but shouted, "Where is the captain of this crew? I keenly wish to say my say to him." He looked about the hall, so fierce his eyes that no man could hold his gaze. All present marveled at the sight, and sat stony still in silence, awed by his brazen words. Alas! Arthur stood up and greeted the guest. "Fellow, you are fair you are fair welcome. I am Arthur, head of this company. Leave your horse and join us, I pray you. You shall tell us later of yourself and your reasons for visiting my court." "It is not my wish to dally here," the other said. "I have sought you out because your fame is known throughout the land. Your court and company are counted as the best in courtesy and deeds of valor. You may be assured by the holy branch I bear that I come in peace and would part friends with you. Since I want no war, I wear no metal. But should you be as bold as all men believe, you will grant me a favor before I go." "Courteous knight," said Arthur, "if you crave a contest, then you shall surely have one." "No, fighting is far from my thought," the knight replied, "for I see nothing but beardless children on these benches. Their might is puny alongside of mine. No, I called at your court to play a game, since it is Yuletide, when my young blood seeks sport. Is there anyone in this house with red blood and a good gray brain, who would strike one blow for another? I would give him my sharp axe, and, if he be man enough to hold it, he may strike the first blow as hard as he desires. I shall not resist. However, in a 12-month and a day, he shall receive the same from me. Well, who dares accept my challenge?" The stranger in green twisted round in his saddle, rolled his great eyes, arched his bristling brows, stroked his bushy beard, waiting for somebody to rise. When no one moved, he spoke again. "Is this truly Arthur's court, whose fame is spoken of in every realm? See how the Lord of the Round Table cower and quake at the words of one man? Ha ha ha! And he laughed so loudly that King Arthur's face grew red with shame, and he stepped towards the stranger, saying, Sir, now we see you are in earnest. If no one else will take up your challenge, give me your axe, and I shall grant you the boon. Arthur advanced and took the weapon from him, gripped the shaft, and waited for the rider to dismount. The green fellow stepped down and stood before Arthur. A full head taller than just at that moment, Gawain came forward, declaring, Please grant me grace, sire, to take up this challenge in your place. It is not fit for you to take it upon yourself when the offer was made directly to your knights. The loss of my life would be less mourned. To the approval of the court, Sir Gawain took the axe from Arthur and faced the man in green. Arthur, although Gawain's hand trembled, he looked to the green man boldly in his eye. Now, sir, the stranger said, tell me your name, and give me your word that you will fulfill our contract. I am Gawain, said the good knight. It is my blow that awaits you, whatever happens in One moment. It sounds like your mother is picking on your sisters again. It's more than likely well deserved. Alright, so where was I? See. Whatever. I am Gawain, said the good knight. It is my blow that awaits you. Whatever happens, I shall receive your blow in return 12 months hence by whatever weapon you care to choose. But tell me, what is your name, and how am I to find you? The other smiled. I am well content that it is you who will strike the blow. Strike hard and cleanly, and you will straightway hear of my name and house. Then follow in my footsteps at the appointed time. Now, hold the axe steady and show us how it strikes. Thereupon the green giant knelt upon the floor, bowed his head low, and brushing his long green hair forward over his face, he bared the nape of his neck, ready for the blow. Gawain gripped the axe and swung it high, his left foot set firmly forward. Then he brought the axe down deftly upon the bare green neck. The sharp blade sliced through the bones and flesh cleanly and cut it right in two, so that the axe head bit deeply into the floor. The head was sent rolling back and forth among the onlookers' feet. The blood gushed forth out of the body, bright red on green. Yet the fellow did not fall. He did not falter in the slightest. He stood up on stiff legs, and as everybody stared, he reached forward, picked up his head, and held it aloft. Then, grasping the bridle of his green steed, he stepped up into the stirrups and mounted the horse, holding his head up by the hair to face the dais. And that severed head lifted its eyelids, stared with flashing eyes, and opened its mouth wide, so that all could hear its words. Sir Gawain, do not forget our agreement. Seek hard until you find me, as you promised in the presence of these noble knights. Come to the Green Knight's chapel at dawn on New Year's Day to receive just such a blow as you have dealt me. With a sudden movement, he jerked his stallion round and rode swiftly out of the chamber, his head in his hand, sparks flying from the flashing hoofs. Nobody saw which way he went, just as no one had seen him arrive. Yet all who were witness to the scene swore it was a wonder beyond compare. Even Arthur himself was amazed. Looking at Sir Gawain, he said, Take care, good knight, that your courage does not turn cold when you fulfill your pact. So that is a picture of the Green Knight holding his head and Sir Gawain staring in disbelief, for obvious reasons. I would be, I don't know, I'd be remiss if I would say that it wouldn't faze me to cut someone's head off, then pick it up and have it conversing. Reminds me of Doulahan. Or, well, most people would not know similar creatures such as the Headless Horseman from Sleepy Hollow stories. This is an illustration of Sir Gawain staring at a castle off into the distance. I'm assuming that the castle is of that of the Green Knights. So, and he had the axe upon the wall, so that men might stare at it in awe and tell truly amazing tales. The year went by swiftly. The cold cheer of Lent arrived, then the season of summer with its soft winds, followed by Michaelmas, when the moon hangs wintry pale in the night sky, until at last, on All Saints' Day, King Arthur held a feast to honor Sir Gawain before he set off on his quest. After the supper, Gawain took leave of the king and his comrades, of Yvain and Eric, Sir Dardinal le Sauvage, the Duke of Clarence, Lionel and Lucien the Good, Sir Bors and Bedivere. Each gave him counsel, though in their hearts they feared he would not return. "You all know the terms of my task," said Gawain. "I shall endure the stroke of that grim man in green, and entrust myself to God. Farewell." He rode through the kingdom of Logres, King Arthur's realm, with no one for company save his good mount Gringolet, and no one to speak his mind to save Almighty God. On and on, through many a long night, he made his way northwards to the northern coast of Wales, opposite the island of Anglesey, past Holyhead. There he turned east across the Dee, and made his way through the forest of Riordan. Earnestly he inquired of each person he met, had he heard of a knight all in green, or of his green chapel thereabouts. But all said the same, and solemnly swore that they had never heard of such a strange knight or chapel. Thus Gawain rode across the country until Christmas Eve, when he found himself in a thick forest of huge oaks, their branches intertwined with hazel and hawthorn, so that he found it hard to make his way. Suddenly he was aware of a strange castle through the trees. He praised his luck that he had arrived somewhere he might spend Christmas Day. In answer to his call, a porter greeted him from the castle wall. "Good sir," called Gawain, "would you kindly inquire if your lord would permit me to lodge here?" The man soon returned with several servants. They let down the drawbridge, crossed over, and greeted the weary knight most politely. He was led across the bridge, helped down from his horse, and taken by a party of noble squires into a richly furnished hall. A fire blazed fiercely upon the open hearth, and Gawain warmed himself while awaiting the castle lord. Very soon the lord descended from his chambers to greet his guests. "You are heartily welcome to my house," he said. What you find here is entirely at your disposal." "You are most kind, dear sir," said Gawain. Gawain looked at his host and thought how well suited he seemed to be master of such a mighty castle. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a thick beaver-colored beard, fiery red, and a handsome face, proud and honest. They passed into the parlour, where the host had servants promptly attended to all Sir Gawain's needs. He was taken to a bower in the castle where the servants unbuckled his armor, washed and clothed him in rich flowing robes lined with ermine, then led him back to the hall and gave him a seat at the fireside beside the castle lord. Attendants set a table down on trestles, covered it with lustrous white clothes, and laid spoon of silver in a gold salt cellar. They next brought in soup of every sort and sundry fish, some breaded, some broiled on coal, some simmered, some in stews steaming with spices and sauces, and all was washed down with refreshing wines. "Tonight being Christmas Eve," said the host, "we fast on fish. Tomorrow we'll see you sumptuously fed." Before the meal began, the host's wife, who had wished to see the knight, came from her chambers accompanied by her maid. The fair colour of her skin and hair, her proud bearing, and graceful manner as she approached were beyond praise. "She is more beautiful than Queen Guinevere herself," Sir Gawain thought to himself. On her head she wore a tall headdress hung with pearls, and her skin was as white and fair as the first snow fallen upon the hills. The beautiful lady sat down beside Sir Gawain, ordering spices to be brought as refreshment, and more wine to warm their hearts. At the end of the evening Sir Gawain was taken to his room, and slept the night most soundly. 3 days were spent in feasting and Christmas celebrations, with carols and much good fun. All the time the lady of the castle sat beside Sir Gawain and attended to his every comfort. At last it was time to depart, and Gawain took his leave of the kind host, but the castle lord was loath to let him go, insisting that he tell why he had strayed so far from Arthur's court alone on Christmas tide. "I seek the Green Chapel and the lone knight that lives there," answered Gawain. "We agreed to meet at this chapel on a certain day, and I have but 3 days to find it. I had rather die than fail in my errand." Then the lord said with a smile, "Your search is over, sir. Put your mind at rest. You may remain with me in blissful ease until the morn of New Year's Day, for the Green Chapel is but 2 miles from here. I shall gladly show you the way." Gawain was relieved that his search had at last met with success, and he gladly agreed to stay in the castle. The host took his arm and seated him once more by the fireside. "For 3 days," he said, "you shall stay here at your ease, and lie late in bed, since you are lacking in rest, and need all strength for your coming mission. While you are resting, I shall go hunting in the forest, and my wife will entertain you." Bowing low, Sir Gawain gratefully gave his assent. "Now, Sir Gawain," said the host, "let us strike a bargain. Whatever I gain in the forest, I will give to you on my return each evening, and you will give to me all that you have earned that day in my castle." "That sounds a fair bargain to me," laughed Gawain, "for I am sure I stand to gain most by it." At dawn next day, master and servant rode off across the frosty ground following the keen-scented hounds, and while the good lord led the hunt for deer in a linden wood, Gawain lay in bed, lingering long after the pale sun had risen. As he lay beneath his warm coverlet in the curtained four-posted bed, he suddenly caught the sound of the chamber door opening softly. Pulling back one corner of the curtain, he was surprised to see the lord's lovely wife enter and come towards his bed. So abashed was Gawain that he laid his head low again, pretending to be asleep. Meanwhile, she stole towards him, pulled aside the curtain, and sat down softly on the bed, waiting for him to wake. For a long while he feigned sleep, wondering what to do. It ill became an honorable knight to betray his host's firm trust. At last he stirred and stretched, as if startled from sleep, and lifted his eyelids wide as if in wonder at the lady's presence. Oh, sorry about that. She spoke sweetly, gazing fondly at him, her laughing lips inviting. "Good morning, Sir Gawain. You are a heavy sleeper, to let a maiden slip in unnoticed. Since I have caught you unaware, you must grant me a favour." "Good morning, good lady," said Gawain lightly. "Ask what you will of me. I surrender myself to your good graces, and if you will permit your poor prisoner to rise, I shall quickly put on something more befitting a lady's presence." "Not so, sweet sir," said the smiling lady. "You shall not rise from your bed. I wish to keep you captive for a while. All the world knows of your courtesy to ladies, and I wish to test it for myself. You see, we are alone here. My lord and his men are long departed. The door is locked, and since I have you in my power, I could satisfy my own desire and yours as well." "In faith," said Gawain, "what a wonderful prize you offer me. No man could refuse such beauty. Alas, however, I am quite unworthy of your praise. Would that my deeds could ever aspire to the prize you promise." The lady continued to flatter him with the sweetest words, but Sir Gawain resisted. "You are bound to a better man," he told her, "yet I am greatly honored by the kindness that you offer me, and shall ever be your humble servant." Thus they talked until nearly noon, the lady all the while languishing in words of love, the noble knight framing his defence most deftly. At last she rose to leave, saying gaily, "You are not the Gawain that I know by reputation. He would never have sat by a maiden's side without claiming at least one kiss in courtesy." "Good lady," said Gawain, "I grant a kiss most gladly." With that she took him in her arms, bent down her lovely head, and kissed him full upon the lips, then departed in silence. Sounds to me like Sir Gawain is about to fall straight into a trap. See, Gawain did not linger in bed a single moment longer. He was up, dressed, and away to mass as quickly as he could, and he spent the rest of the day in company until the cold moon rose. It was then that the Lord returned. "What think you, sir, of this?" he cried joyfully on seeing Gawain, showing him and the many hinds and does he'd killed that day. "In truth," said Gawain, "the game is the finest I have seen in this season of the year." "And I give it to you, Gawain," said the kindly host, "according to our pact." "That being so," said the knight, "I shall repay you what I earned today within these castle walls." Thereupon he embraced the host and kissed him heartily. "Okay. Such a gift," said the lord, "I gladly accept. But tell me, where did you earn such a fine reward? I am anxious to hear your story." This is a picture of Sir Gawain resting in his bed while the beautiful lady of the castle sat there and flattered him with her sweet, tantalizing words. But it would be interesting to see where this goes. "That was not part of our agreement," said Gawain. "Press me no further. You have truly had all that we agreed upon." With jokes and laughter they conversed, ate a hearty supper of roast venison, washed down with the best red wines, and at close of day agreed to fulfill on the morrow the same pact as on the day just ended, that the two should trade in the evening whatever each had won that day. Then finally they said good night for the hour was late. Before the barnyard cock had crowed 3 times, the lord was out of bed and away deep into the woods. Meanwhile, Sir Gawain slept on beneath his silken canopy, just as the day was dawning. However, the lady crept into his room and sat down at his bedside. This time he thought it best to greet her right away, and she repaid him with soft words, sitting closely at her side. "Sir, if you really are Gawain," she sighed, "it seems great wonder that you have learned nothing from yesterday's lesson, though I painted it as plain as my poor wits allowed." "What lesson, dear lady?" he asked alarmed. "Pray forgive me if I have failed you." "My lesson was in kissing," came her answer. "Where he has found fond favor, it becomes a knight to claim freely what is offered to him." "Dismiss such thoughts, dear lady," he said. "Such liberties, I fear, would much offend you." "I would not resist," she said. "I could not insult you by taking what is not mine to claim," he replied, "but I would not deny you a gift that is freely granted. You may kiss me, if you please." The lady kissed him twice upon the lips, and the two conversed as friends. As soon as she had gone, he rose and made ready for Mass, spent the day talking with the household, and waited for the Lord's return. When at dusk the huntsman returned, the master greeted Gawain cheerily and showed him the huge wild boar he had caught within the forest. "Now, Gawain," he said, "the boar is yours by the terms of our agreement." "I thank you," said Sir Gawain, "and I give you all that I have gained here in the castle." Thereupon he clasped the host about the neck and kissed him heartily upon both cheeks. "By St. Giles," the host replied, "you're the luckiest man I've ever met." That night at supper, the host's lovely lady treated Gawain to sweet stolen glances that stirred his heart, but he could not in conscience repay her courtship, though he took all pains to please her. At the end of supper, the host proposed that they renew their pact for New Year's Eve, but Gawain asked to be excused, saying he might leave at dawn upon his quest. The host protested. "I give you my word that by dawn on the New Year's Day ye shall be at the Green Chapel. I cannot permit you to leave just yet. Stay and lie in your soft, warm bed while I am hunting. Hold to our terms and trade your winnings with me. I have tested you twice and found you true. Tomorrow the third payment will be made." Gawain agreed, so they drank the last draught of wine and went to bed. Early next day the lord rode off into the clear, crisp morning in search of Vixen. In the meantime Sir Gawain lay in a wholesome sleep, but the lady, since love would allow her no repose, was awake with the dawn. Following her heart, she went to Gawain's chamber in her flowing night-dress, her face and lovely arms freely displayed. Sinking down at his side, she greeted him with a kiss, while he, chivalrous as ever, welcomed her most graciously. As Gawain gazed at her, so alluring attired, so faultless of feature, so bright and lovely, his heart surged within him. But with gentle laughter he lightly turned aside her affectionate words, readily avoiding Cupid's love-filled barbs. Finally the fair lady said, "How can you be so cold towards me? Is it because you already have a sweetheart to whom you've pledged your love?" "No," Gawain answered truly, "I have no sweetheart, nor will have yet a while." "Then let me now kiss you 3 times in parting," the lady said sadly, "and I shall leave you lamenting as a maiden spurned." As he inclined his head, she kissed him lovingly, then sighing, said, "Before I depart, pray let me give you some token of my love." She handed him a gold ring with a beautiful stone that flashed before his eyes like the fiery sun. but he dismissed it. "Before God, good lady, I forego all gifts. I have none to offer, and therefore will not take one." On this, you see Sir Gawain and the Lord of the Castle talking, and a boar thrown down at its side. It seems to be a really big wild boar, almost the length of a horse. Now, fun fact, traditional wild boars were actually large and extremely aggressive. That's why for the longest time, it actually became a test of a knight's courage to go out hunting boars with only a spear. Now, the boar spears were made uniquely where there was long prongs, almost like, best way to explain it is, say this was the spear tip, and down the haft was a crossguard, like this, followed by the shaft of the spear. Now, the crossguard was there because after stabbing into the boar, it would usually go mad with rage and run itself up a spear's shaft to try to get to whoever hurt it and then gore the knight to death. That's why they started building those crossguards on boar spears. Just a fun little history fact. Doesn't really bear any... Well, it has no true relevance to the story. So, "If you refuse my ring," she persisted, "I shall give you my silken girdle to keep you from harm in your trials to come." Thereupon she released the knot and loosened a green silk belt from about her waist, pressing it upon him and pleading with him to take it. He dearly wished to refuse, but fearing lest he offend her, and believing it might act as a good luck charm in his coming ordeals, he finally accepted. When the lady had gone, Sir Gawain jumped out of bed and dressed, tying the green silk belt about his waist beneath his coat. No sooner had the good lord returned than Gawain set to kissing him 3 times as earnest as he could. "By heaven," said the host, "you have had some luck since you took up this kissing trade. Is there anything else that you receive?" "Certainly not," Gawain replied at once, blushing, for he had not given his host the hidden girdle, fearing to betray the wife. "Now," said the other, "my gift is very poor. I have hunted all day long and have nothing save the foul-smelling fox-brush. Poor payment for 3 kisses." They both laughed and dined together, drank and made merry as such good men might, until it was very late. Then off to their beds they went full content. See, I just lost a place in reading. There we are. The night passed. New Year's Day drew on. The daylight dispelled the darkness, and the gray clouds in the sky cast down their snow. Though he kept his eyes closed, Sir Gawain slept little, counting each crow of the cock and listening long to the wind wailing wildly. Before dawn he rose, robed himself in his richest attirement, putting his love gift, his lady girdle, around his waist. While the household slept, he made his way into the courtyard. He found his good steed, Grindelgot, had been made ready by one of the master's grooms, who now stood waiting, eager to show the way. Gawain mounted his horse, struck its sides, and with its steel spurs, and rode out of the castle across the lower drawbridge. Sir Gawain and the guide rode through the forest of bare boughs, with steep banks rising on either side. They climbed up high hills covered in frozen snow, and galloped over mist-mantled moors until, just as the sun was due to rise, they reached a high hilltop that overlooked the valley. You're close by the green chapel now, said the guide. Take the narrow track down yonder slope until you reach the bottom of the broad valley. Then bear to the left, and you will soon see it. Farewell, Sir Gawain. God be with you. Gawain picked his way down the track and soon found himself riding across a wild, God-forsaken valley. Not a soul or dwelling was to be seen except, in the distance, what seemed like a grass-covered hillock, hard by a flowing stream. Riding up to it and dismounting, he found the green mound was hollow like a cave. Can this be the Green Chapel? He wondered. Visor down and lance in hand, he advanced towards the cave, when all of a sudden he heard his name called from behind a crag on a distant riverbank. Gawain, halt now and receive what I promised you. Then, round the crag appeared the Green Knight, bearing an axe with the curved broad blade filed to a very fine edge. This is a picture of Gawain and the lady of the castle offering her the green girdle. When they stood face to face, the Green Giant said, "Ah, my friend, it seems your words hold good." You have followed me faithfully to settle the business on which we both agreed. A year ago you struck me a great blow. Now you, at this new year, must give me a chance to do the same. Take off your helmet, bow down your head, and do not flinch. I shall not flinch, said Gawain. Strike away, I have no fear. With that, he knelt down and fearlessly bared his neck before the blade. The green man gathered his strength, heaved the heavy axe high above his head, and grim-faced prepared to deal a massive blow. Gawain, meanwhile, glanced up just as the axe descended and his shoulders quivered just a mite. Abruptly, the huge man stayed his blow and said in scorn, "Do you call yourself brave? I did not flinch when you made to strike me, yet you quiver at the mere swishing of my axe? What a coward you are, Sir Gawain." "Strike again," said Gawain. "I shall not quiver this time. Go on, man. Get it over with, for God's sake." "Have at you, then," the other cried, and heaving his axe aloft, the Green Knight brought it down with a blood-curdling scream, yet once again stayed his hand before drawing blood. However, this time Gawain stood as still as a tree stump anchored by 100 roots, neither glancing up nor flinching. "Now you've recovered your nerve," said the Green Knight, "so I may strike truly at a knight from King Arthur's court. Keep your neck bone clear. I shall now deliver the final blow." Gawain said grimly, "I tire of your threats. Finish the job if you're man enough for it." "I shall end this affair without delay," shouted the other, and he brought the sharp axe down hard on Sir Gawain's neck. Yet, so skilful was the blow that it merely parted the skin, freeing a trickle of red blood. When Gawain felt the wound and saw his own blood bright red upon the snow, he sprang up in an instant, drew his sword, and shouted, "I have borne the blow as we agreed. If you strike again, I will defend myself, for we are now equal, and you repaid." The Green Giant lowered his axe. "Bold fellow," he said gently, "put out your fire. I owed you a blow, and you have borne it. Had I wished, I might well have killed ye. The first blow and the second were for promises truly kept, for the kisses that my beloved wife gave you within my castle, and each you restored to me. Honest men pay what they are owed, but you failed at the third attempt, and therefore earned the cut. For that is my green belt about your waist, that same one my dear wife gave you. I know well the story, the number of kisses, and your noble conduct too. It was all my scheme to test you. I hold you to be the most faultless man to walk this earth, a precious pearl among with white stones. Yet you were a little disloyal in concealing the green belt. I forgive you, though, as it was done not for cunning or even courtship, but in respect of my wife, and love of your own dear life. I am ashamed for the latter, sir, said Gawain, handing him the green girdle. Pray, take this symbol of my weakness. I have betrayed my oath of loyalty to knighthood. The other laughed loudly. You have borne your penance at the point of my blade, and are quite forgiven. Now take back this girdle, as green as my own garments, so that you will always be mindful of our meeting. Return with me to the castle. Make your peace with my wife, and we shall complete our feastings in good cheer. But Gawain declined. I have lingered long enough, he said. Please command me to your devoted wife, but I must return to court. I gladly take the silken girdle, though. It shall accompany me always, so that I may recall with shame the weakness of the flesh. When praise and high prowess have pleased my heart, one glance at the badge of shame will still my pride. The two men embraced and parted. In due course, Sir Gawain arrived safely back at King Arthur's court, and everyone was overjoyed to see him. The king and queen both kissed him, and many a comrade clasped him on his bosom. Eagerly they asked, and solemnly he told of what had passed at the Green Chapel. See, Gawain said, showing the green belt at last, this is the symbol of my weakness that I must wear until my dying day. The king comforted the knight, and all the court together agreed that the lords and ladies belonging to King Arthur's court would wear a band of green for Gawain's sake, so that it would be taken as a token of their comradeship and an honor to their knighthood. And on that band they had inscribed the noble words, Honey Sircol mal y pensep. Shame on him who has evil in his mind. And thus was the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Hope you enjoyed that one. Chivalry is a strange code when you look into its history. But alas, that's for another time. I hope you enjoyed that story. Neomore, love you, little one, and I can't wait to meet you. Hopefully, we get to see each other soon, and all your cousins would love to meet you as well. And as you heard from your aunt earlier, she can't wait to pinch your cheeks. Now, if you enjoyed that story, it was one of the short stories that are one of the collection of tales in the Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan, illustrated by Victor Ambrose. This book that I'm reading out of was actually first published in 1982. So, it's a fairly old book. Well, I love you, Dahi. I can't wait to hold you again. I miss you. And I hope you feel better. For anyone else listening to this or watching the channel, thank you. I really appreciate it. A lot of these videos aren't edited or any of that because the whole idea behind these is so that my son, Dahi, who is currently in the hospital awaiting a heart transplant, can hear not only my voice, but that of his mother, his sisters, and a little bit of the craziness that goes around. To all the doctors and nurses, volunteers at Children's Mercies, thank you so much for everything you have done for my son and for taking care of all the children there. Your facility truly is a blessing, and I cannot put into words how grateful we are. So thank you for taking care of my son. Please continue to watch over him. Love you, Dickie.